Hello everybody and welcome to a new tutorial about SDL, and in this video I actually going through something called SDL net, which is for networking in SDL. Although there are several libraries for networking like sockets, but this is relatively simple to use and it's SDL, and I already covered SDL in great detail, so I will use this library to actually send a data package through the internet with the TCP protocol. Okay, so first of all you need to download it because it's not part of the SDL by itself, and pretty much the first result should be the SDL net. I should resize it, and of course download the binary package for Linux or Windows or Mac OS X, whatever you prefer. I actually downloaded it, so if you use Linux, obviously you download the development, since these are just runtimes, I believe so. I'm not sure, but so here it is. Just download it, and after you have downloaded and extracted it, you will find the USR folder in there, and just copy this USR folder in your /USR folder, and of course here are the include and library file and some share files. It's documentary about it seems. So if you have copied it, probably you are able to compile this program. Okay, I guess it's similar to Windows as well. So first of all is we need to initialize the SDL net similarly than we do with the SDL. So SDL net, and just use the init function, and this doesn't require any parameter. So SDL net has the prefix of SDL net with capital N and not capitalized E and T. Right, and we have to deinitialize, so quit from that, so SDL net and just quit. Right, so this was simple, we just initialize. But of course before I do that I should include the SDL net, so SDL/SDL_net.h. okay, and that was quite simple. Now we need to actually fill up the IP address which we want to connect. This is a structure called IP address, and I believe you can manually set the members of this structure. There are, I don't know, IP or something address, I'm not sure about that, search for it, but we will actually not do that because it has a difficult format, and it's just easier to use the SDL net and resolve host function. This function waits first the IP address, actually the address of this IP address structure. Next is basically the address which you want to connect. So for example www.google.com, for example, you can connect right here, or you can write an IP address here like this. But if it is a server, and I forget to mention that, but I first will make the server, because this will contain two files, this project. First the server which we are going to connect to, and the client which we are going to connect from to the server. So the client will connect to the server, and the server will send something to the client. Basically that's the basic idea behind networking, that there are, of course, there are the peer-to-peer as kind of networks, but here I have a server which is the main, and there is the client, and there can be several clients, like 20 clients, and all connect to one server. So for example, in case of a multiplayer FPS game, the server is, it can be actually on the same machine as one client, but it can be on a different machine, and the clients connect to the server and send everything to the server, and the server will do the rest. So I will start to make that FPS multiplayer FPS game soon, maybe tomorrow. Okay, so if it is a server, then we need a special value, a null, indicating that it is a server. and the last parameter of this function is actually the port which we are connecting to. So the port is basically determine which kind of communication do we do. So there are several kind of often used ports, like 21 for FPS FTP server, 80 for HTTP, so your browser, and what else. There are several things like that, but we can use just some random number. Make sure that no one else use this as so 1 2 3 4. This is a port. There are 65,000 ports if I remember correctly. So now we created an IP address, and this is actually the IP address of the server. Okay, the next thing to do is to actually create a socket for the TCP connection. So the TCP connection, there are two kind of basic connection. There are the TCP and the UDP, which is transmission control protocol and user datagram protocol. I will cover just the TCP connection in this video. The UDP, it doesn't require connecting, you just send the package and get it on the other side. But there is the danger that it will not go through the network or not in the order which you send it. But if the package gone through the network, then it is ensured that the content of this package is okay. So I haven't mentioned the package yet. The package is basically data, a bunch of data, like an array of data or something. So just data, basically. That the package is used by the network to send a data, encapsulate that data, and send it as a data package. So the socket which we are going to create now is it's what we use for communication. So it's basically the interface for communication. That's how we actually identify what communication do we do, and that's basically it. Might be more clear later on. So I create a TCP socket. This is the name of a structure, and actually I call it socket, or we'll call it server, because this is the server socket. The server socket can be used to get if there was a connection attempt to the server. We can use the SDL net and underscore TCP underscore open function to create a TCP socket, and it's waiting for the IP address structure which we have filled in earlier. So this is the server socket, and we can use the function called TCP SDLnet TCP accept to try out if there is a connection attempt to this server. Okay, and we need to create one more socket, and TCP socket, and I call it client, and this will be the client. Of course, then now only one client can connect at one time. But if we make an array of client, or even better, in the next tutorial I want to show you the SDL, so the socket set, which you can use to create several clients. So for example, 20 clients could connect to this one server. Okay, but for now just let's stay with one client. Right, okay, and here we will make the main loop, so while true, and actually it will wait for a connection attempt while true, so infinitely. Okay, and try the client is equal to SDLnet TCP accept. So if someone try to connect to this server, then we will get the socket for that. So if someone try to connect to the server, we get the socket, and this socket can be used to communicate with the client. If it is null, then no one try to connect to the server, so nothing is really need to done. So if the client is not null, we only do something like that. So now here you can communicate with the client. Okay, and we can use this client socket to communicate with the client. So let's try to send something to the client for now. So SDL net TCP send. This is sending something to the client. So first the socket which we are using, we sending it to the client. Next, what we want to send, let's make a variable, a simple text for now. So const char and text, and let it be equal to hello client. Right, so here is what we want to send. So just pass text, it's waiting a void pointer, so you can pass any kind of pointer right here. Okay, the next thing is the length of this, which should be the strlen. So let me include the C string header file, so I can use the strlen function of the text, and actually +1 because we want to send a null byte character as well. You know what? Send \n, so a new line at the end of this, so it will be seems better. Okay, and once we send it, actually I will close the connection and quit. So for the server now, if someone want to connect in the 1234 port, I just send a message hello client and a new line and close the connection. To close the connection, you can use the SDL net TCP close and just use the socket which you want to close, the client. Okay, and actually break from this infinite loop, so it will not go infinitely. And similarly, you have to close this other socket, the server socket as well. So SDL net underscore TCP close and server. Okay, now that was all. Actually, we are finished with the server, so we can actually try out. But before I do that, I go through the source once again. So first of all, we have to initialize the SDLnet, and of course put the library and then include files to the correct place where your compiler can find it. The next thing to do is to actually fill up this IP address structure. This IP address structure has I believe two members, the IP address and the port, but of course this SDLnet resolve host will convert this whatever we write here and here to the correct format. If the second parameter is null, that pretty much means this is a server, not a client. But if the second parameter is not null, like an IP address or google.com or something other than null, then it will try to connect to that. To create the server socket, you need to use the SDLnet TCP open, which opens up a TCP socket, and you can use this socket to communicate. It's like an interface. This is what identifies what do you so the communication basically. And I have another socket which is the client. For now we can only get one client. Okay, now in a infinite loop I try to wait for a client to connect. If no client connect, that this client will be null and we don't go into this if statement, so it will just looping while a client trying to accept to connect to the server. If a client connected, then we send a message hello client and close the connection and break from the infinite loop and close the server socket. This is an important part. If you don't close the server socket, you cannot bind, so you cannot connect to the same port again because it's not closed. So it's like the dynamic memory, it will stay there that someone already connected to this port, so you cannot. Okay, and that was it. And actually let's try to compile it and let's try to test it out, although we don't have a client yet, but I will show you how you can test out without clients. So I will server.cpp, use the lsdl and lsdl underscore net flags to compile it, and it compiled. If I run it, it's waiting for incoming connection, as you can see. So we don't have a client yet, but we can use something which is built in basically in every operating system. Probably you have already heard about it. It is called telnet. It is basically just simple communication. So here is both of my terminals. Now I will use my own IP address, so the loopback address, to try to connect it. So to connect it, write telnet. This is work in Windows as well, so just run the cmd command line and you can type telnet, and I will use something called the loopback address. It is in every computer basically. This is not going out to the internet, but actually looping back to my own computer, the 128.0.0.1. So it is my own computer. Of course, if it would run in a IP address, this server, then I would have to type the IP address to it. So I don't know, is okay, like IP address, any IP address works. Of course, make sure that your firewall is open, so in the given port. Okay, but as I said, it is the same computer, so I have to use my loopback address, so 128.0.0.1. okay, and the port which was 1234. So now if I press enter, that's what happened. The hello client text is sent to this telnet, and the connection was closed, as you can see. So now I send first data package through the internet, although it was actually in the same computer, but it would work if it wouldn't be in the same computer. Okay, that was quite simple. Let's make the client, but because the client is so similar to this server, I actually will copy this code for the server and paste it here, and just change the parts which need to be changed. Okay, so first of all, this is not a server socket, so I have to write something in here. For example, write the loopback address similarly than I did with the telnet. So I use the same port to connect to. Of course, if I use some other ports, I cannot connect basically because there is nothing that listens there. Okay, and we don't need a server socket right now. So actually I can delete that and try to connect to it. To connect to a server, you use the SDL net TCP open, similarly as we did with the server, just the IP address is not containing null here, but containing something else. So SDL net underscore TCP underscore open, and just has the address of the IP address, the IP structure. Okay, that was it. We connected, and now actually let's wait for something to return. So I make an array of chars, so a character array with 100 characters, and we can use the SDLnet underscore TCP underscore recv, so receive basically, and the receive is actually the pair of the send. So whatever was sent, we can use the receive to receive that basically. So to the receive is waiting first the socket, which is the client, then it's waiting for the pointer to wherever we want the data. Of course, this is a void pointer as well, so I can pass this char pointer, and the maximum amount of data which we will wait, which is 100. Okay, and now we are pretty much finished, so let's just write out this text. So let's write out the text. Okay, and that was okay. I have to close, and that was the not close but the client. So close the client, I wanted to say. So that was this client, and now if everything goes well, in one terminal I compile the server. So in this terminal I compile the server, and if I can find another terminal, I can compile the client. So client, oh, it's not my desktop. So compile the client similar flags, so SDL and SDLnet with not capital N. Okay, it's compiled as well. So let's start the server. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, I know why. I should name something else, so an output, and name it to, I will call this one client. Okay, and I will call this one, so I name it differently, and I call it output. Oh, not output, whatever I want, the server. Okay, and I start the server, and here I just start the client, and as you can see, the communication actually happened. So whenever I lost my terminals, here it is. Okay, so whenever I connected with the client, it write the hello client text back to me and closed the connection. That was the basics of this netting. Before I go, let me make one more example just to demonstrate that it not only work in locally, but actually work on the internet as well. So to do that, I will actually connect to a website on the internet. It's a simple website. Okay, so in order to connect to this website, I actually have to change this to the name of the website, which is www.linux.org, right? And the port number 280. The 80, as I said earlier, is the port for the HTTP, which is basically what your browser uses. So that's the HTTP. Okay, it could have been any number, but someone choose the port 80, and since then the port 80 is the default for any web server. Okay, and now I am connected to this server if everything goes well. By the way, this function return -1 if something not goes well. You may want to check that. Okay, and actually send this website to an HTTP request. So I will make a character literal right here, so const char and HTTP, and this will be actually a request, so get, which is I think get the source code slash HTTP slash 1.1, so this is defining the version and what do I want to get. Okay, and then in a new line write host colon www.linux.org. Okay, and in the end it's important 2 new lines. So 2 new lines, else it will wait for other things. So 2 new lines at the end so it's the header is end, basically that's what that means. Okay, so I send an HTTP request, and if everything goes well, it will send me back the source code of this linux.org page. This is how the users do as well. Okay, so now this client is open the web server. By the way, this client is null if something went wrong. Although it seems like it's not a pointer, actually it's a pointer, just a little type def, because with a little type def it seems like it's not a pointer, but actually it's a pointer. Okay, and now send this HTTP request to the site. So SDLnet underscore TCP underscore send, and send this HTTP request. So send it to the website, which is the client. Actually the name of this variable is client, but actually this is the linux.org website, the socket to that website. Send this HTTP and strlen HTTP +1 to send the whole text right here. Okay, the +1 is again for the null byte character. Okay, so I am sending an HTTP request to this website, and the next thing to do is to actually receive. I did a little testing, so apparently you cannot receive it to one file. One package, I mean. So let me make a char text and 10,000 character. About 1,400 is what can be placed in one package. It's the maximum size package, but actually this SDLnet receive will return how much the size of the received text. We can actually use a while loop, so while we get data by this function, I will write out the text, so cout and text. write stdc out actually. The problem is that in the end it will wait because this SDL receive is a blocking call, so if no data is incoming then it continuously waiting, but I will kill the process in that case. So let's try this out. I find my terminal somewhere. That is it. Okay, so get it, and as you can see, here is the source, the entire source of this website. Probably if you have seen HTML, you recognize that this is an HTML source. If I was just copy this to an HTML file and open up with my browser, I will get something similar to the website I have shown you earlier, except the images. If you want to actually get source of some bigger websites like google.com or youtube.com, it will be a little bit complicated because I checked it out and it's a lot of communication, so this 2-line of HTTP request will not give you back the code. It will give you back something that this document has moved. That's all we know, something like that. Okay, so this was the first tutorial of the SDL net, and thank you for watching and have a great day.